Forbidden worlds. In a distant corner of the galaxy, far from the bustling trade routes and glittering hub worlds, lay an unassuming star system. Its handful of planets orbited a small, cool star, the kind that rarely warranted a second glance from passing scouts. But to the Korai, this system was an object of intense fascination, and unspeakable dread. They called it Peku, the Forbidden System. And rightly so, for every world that circled Peku's star was a death trap, each in its own unique way. Commander Zylothax Hurana, first officer of the Korai exploration vessel Inquiring Mind, reviewed the long-range scans with a mix of scientific curiosity and existential horror. "Anything new to report?" he asked, not taking his eye stalks off the data readout. Lieutenant Frukal Pontak, the ship's chief science officer, undulated in the equivalent of a head shake. "More of the same, sir. Peku 1, tidally locked with a scorched near side and frozen far side. Peku 2, no discernible core, racked by magnetosphere flux. And Peku 3. Zylothax shuddered, his chromatophores flickering an uneasy gray. "Don't remind me about Peku 3. A global ocean of that accursed dihydrogen monoxide, it doesn't bear thinking about." "As you say, sir," Frukal said. "Still no sign of higher lifeforms on any of the worlds. Just the occasional burst of those odd radio signals from Peku 3. "Yes, those," Zylothax mused. "Almost artificial sounding, aren't they? But surely nothing could survive on a world so drenched in that vile liquid. Keep monitoring and let me know if anything dash." A sharp trill from the comm panel cut him off. Zylothax tapped the flashing light with a tentacle. "Report." "Sir, you need to see this," came the agitated voice of Sensor Tech Brunix. "We've got an unknown contact, just jumped in at the edge of the system. And it's like nothing I've ever seen before." Zylothax's hearts began to race. An unknown contact, here. Every spacefaring species avoided Peku. It was a scientific curiosity at best, a cosmic horror at worst. No one in their right mind would willingly come here. He composed himself with an effort. "Put it on screen." The forward view screen flickered to life, and Zylothax found himself staring at the oddest vessel he'd ever laid eyes on. It was all harsh angles and gleaming metal, a far cry from the organic curves of Korai ships. Spindly girders jutted out at odd intervals, studded with blinking lights and spinning dishes. But strangest of all were the markings on its pitted hull. Zylothax had to blink a few times to be sure his translator implant was working. "HMS Endeavor," he read aloud. "That's no language I'm familiar with. Frukal, any insights?" The science officer consulted his data banks, chromatophores swirling in concentration. After a long moment, he looked up with a start. "Sir. I think it's them. The beings from the radio signals. The ones we thought couldn't possibly exist." Zylothax felt a chill run down his exoskeleton. "You don't mean?" Frukal's voice was barely a whisper. "Humans, sir. I think we've just made first contact with humans." As if on cue, the alien vessel began to accelerate towards Peku 3, its impossible homeworld. Zylothax watched it go, feeling like he'd just witnessed the beginning of something momentous, and potentially terrifying. Humans. Here. The most mythologized beings in the galaxy, whispered about in horrified fascination from the core worlds to the fringe. And now, by some cosmic coincidence, their path had crossed with the Korai. Zylothax straightened in his grav harness, resolve hardening his features. Helm lay in a course to follow that ship. Stealth mode engaged. "I want to know what they're doing here, and if the stories about them are true." As the inquiring mind slipped into Peku's shadow, Zylothax couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change. For better or worse, the humans had arrived. And the galaxy would never be the same. The human vessel HMS Endeavor glided through the void, its patchwork hull illuminated by the faint glow of a distant sun. In its cramped and cluttered bridge, Captain Nia Sørensen leaned back in her crash couch and stretched, feeling her joints pop in the half-gravity. "Sit rep," she called out, her voice carrying a hint of weariness. It had been a long haul from Earth, out here to the very fringes of known space. Lieutenant Commander Jae-yoon Kim, her XO and best friend, swiveled to face her. "All systems nominal, Cap. We're on final approach to P3X-119, ETA 30 minutes. Nia nodded, her gaze drifting to the forward view screen. P3X-119, or Poseidon, as the survey team had imaginatively dubbed it, loomed large ahead of them, a sapphire jewel swathed in bands of white cloud. She still had a hard time believing it was real, this impossible oasis in the coldest backwater of the galaxy. A proper Goldilocks world, with a breathable atmosphere, stable orbit, the works. And if the long-range scans were to be believed, it even had indigenous life. The exobiologists back home were practically frothing at the mouth to get their hands on whatever samples the Endeavour could bring back. Nia's musings were interrupted by a loud crunch from the comm station. She glanced over to see Lieutenant Avi Patel, her comm officer, feet up on his console as he munched away on a bag of pretzels. "Patel," Nia said wearily, "what have I told you about eating on duty?" Avi hurriedly swallowed his mouthful and quirked a grin. "Sorry, Cap. Just keeping my blood sugar up, you know. In case we run into any space monsters out here." From the science station, Dr. Zara Okafor snorted. "The only monster out here is your appetite, Avi. Now pipe down, I'm trying to calibrate these sensors." Nia hid a smile as she turned back to the viewscreen. This was her crew in a nutshell, brilliant, dedicated, and absolutely incapable of taking anything too seriously. It was a delicate balance, maintaining discipline without crushing morale, but she liked to think she'd found the sweet spot. Kim's voice broke into her thoughts. "Captain, I've got something on short-range sensors. An anomaly, 50,000 clicks off the starboard bow." Instantly, the bridge fell silent. Nia sat up straight, adrenaline starting to hum in her veins. "Define anomaly, dot." "I'm not sure," Kim said, frowning at his readouts. "It's small, whatever it is. Metallic signature. Could be an asteroid, but the albedo is all wrong." Nia chewed her lip, considering. Out here on the edge of known space, an anomaly could be anything from a rogue comet to a first contact situation. And she wasn't sure which prospect excited her more. "Helm, bring us about," she ordered. "Let's get a closer look. And go to yellow alert, just to be safe." As the bridge lighting dimmed and the alert panel began to flash, Nia leaned forward in her seat, eyes fixed on the viewscreen. The mysterious object was just coming into visual range now, a glint of silver against the starfield. Kim's hands flew over his console, and the image zoomed in. Nia's breath caught in her throat. It was a ship. An honest-to-God alien ship, hanging motionless in the void. Its hull was a seamless curve of iridescent metal, all flowing lines and organic contours. Like some deep-sea creature transposed to the stars. "It's beautiful," breathed Zara, her dark eyes wide with wonder. "It's trouble," muttered Avi. Nia held up a hand for silence, her mind racing. First contact protocol was clear: observe, initiate communication if possible, but do not engage unless threatened. The question was, would this alien species see their approach as a threat? Only one way to find out. "Hail them," she said, proud of the steadiness in her voice. Avi nodded and opened a channel. "Unknown vessel, this is the HMS Endeavour of the Terran Confederation. We come in peace. Please respond." A hush fell over the bridge as they waited for an answering hail, a crackle of static, anything. But there was only silence. Then, without warning, the alien ship moved. It darted forward like a silverfish, so fast Nia's eyes could barely track it. One moment it was a distant gleam, the next it was filling the view screen, near enough to make out every curve and whirl of its hull. Evasive maneuvers. Nia barked, instinct taking over. But even as Kim sent the Endeavor into a wild corkscrew, she knew it was no use. The alien ship matched their every move, effortlessly keeping pace. They weren't trying to evade. They were hurting. The realization struck Nia like a thunderbolt. Whoever these aliens were, they were treating the Endeavor like a wayward sheep, corralling them towards some unseen destination. And she had a sinking feeling she knew where. "They're pushing us towards the planet," Kim confirmed, his voice tight. "Orders, Captain." Nia stared at the looming bulk of Poseidon, her mind awhirl. What did these aliens want? To parley on neutral ground? Or to strand them on an unknown world, far from any hope of rescue? She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of command settle on her shoulders. "Steady as she goes, helm. Let's see where they're taking us. And keep hailing them. If they want to talk, we'll talk." As the Endeavor sliced through Poseidon's upper atmosphere, Nia couldn't shake the feeling that they were plunging headlong into the unknown. But that was the job, wasn't it? To seek out new life and new civilizations, come what may. She just hoped this new civilization was feeling friendly. Commander Zylothax watched the human ship descend through Peku 3's cloud layers, chromatophores flashing in agitation. Every instinct screamed at him to pull back, to put as much distance as possible between the inquiring mind and these unpredictable aliens. But curiosity was stronger than fear. He had to know what they were doing here, what they wanted. Even if every spacer's tale he'd ever heard about humans was true. "Bring us into a lower orbit," he ordered, trying to project a confidence he didn't feel. "And keep scanning for any more of their ships. If this is some kind of trick." He let the thought hang unfinished. In truth, he had no idea what he'd do if the humans turned hostile. The inquiring mind was a science vessel, lightly armed at best. Against a warship of unknown capabilities, they wouldn't stand a chance. But the short-range scans showed only the one human vessel, now settling into a gentle spiral as it homed in on one of Peku 3's larger landmasses. Almost as if it had done this before. "I'm detecting structures on the surface," said Frukal, wonder in his voice. "Buildings, roads, some kind of landing platform. Gods above, I think they have a settlement down there." Zylothax leaned forward, eye stalk straining for a better view. Sure enough, as they skimmed lower he could make out the geometric lines of artificial construction, a patch of ordered shapes amid the wild chaos of the alien jungle. The human ship was heading straight for it, its ungainly bulk somehow graceful as it prepared to land. Zylothax found himself marveling at their pilot's skill, guiding such a massive vessel down with barely a wobble. And then, with a sudden flare of its landing thrusters, the ship was down. Settled on the ferrocrete pad like an ungainly bird coming to roost. Silence reigned on the inquiring mind's bridge as they all stared at the viewscreen, hardly daring to breathe. They were witnessing history, Zylothax realized. The first time any Korai had laid eyes on a human settlement. The first time any of them had come face to face with the species that haunted their legends. He opened his mouth to give the order to land, to prepare a contact party. But before he could utter a word, the human ship's airlock cycled open, and they came boiling out. Dozens of them, clad in shimmering environment suits and armed with an array of tools Zylothax couldn't even begin to identify. They moved with purpose and energy, fanning out across the landing area with an air of casual ownership. As if this world, this whole forbidden system, was theirs by right. And everywhere they went, madness followed. Some immediately began setting up bizarre contraptions, unspooling shining coils and jabbing metal rods into the earth. Others raced off into the jungle, whooping and hollering like excited hatchlings. Still others seemed engrossed in picking up rocks and bits of local flora, peering at them intently through handheld scopes. It was chaos. Utter, incomprehensible chaos. But through it all, Zylothax could sense an undercurrent of something else. Something bright and vital and wholly alien. A fierce, relentless curiosity, tempered with an almost reckless courage. So this was what humans were like. Not the monsters or demigods of legend, but something else. Something new. By the stars, breathed Frocal, his voice a mix of awe and trepidation. What have we stumbled onto? Zylothax could only shake his head, wonder and fear warring in his hearts. I don't know, he murmured. But I think the galaxy just got a whole lot bigger. First contact. Zylothax's mind raced as he watched the humans spread out across their impossible settlement, a hive of activity amid the alien jungle. What were they doing here, on this deadly world no sane being would call home? What secrets were they hiding behind those mirrored visors, those glinting tools? He had to find out. The future of the Korai, perhaps of the whole galaxy, could depend on it. Ready a contact party, he ordered, his voice steadier than he felt. Small team, no weapons. We come in peace. Frocal undulated in alarm. Sir, are you sure that's wise? We don't know anything about these creatures, their intentions. If they perceive us as a threat, then we must ensure they do not, Zylothax said firmly. We cannot hide in orbit forever, Frocal. Sooner or later, they will detect us. Better to make contact on our terms. The science officer subsided, chromatophores flickering in the Korai equivalent of a worried frown. But he did not argue further as Zylothax assembled his team, himself, Frocal, and 2 security officers armed with nothing but stunners and goodwill. As the shuttle hatch hissed open in the muggy air of Peku, 3 rushed in, Zylothax felt a moment of pure, primal fear. He was about to step onto an alien world and confront an unknown species, armed with nothing but his wits and a desperate hope for peace. May the gods have mercy on us all, he thought grimly. And then he stepped out into the light. Captain Nia Sørensen was just finishing up a preliminary sweep of the landing site when the call came in from Ensign Chen on perimeter watch. Captain, we've got incoming. Looks like some kind of shuttle, coming in from orbit. Nia's head snapped up, eyes narrowing. Shuttle? From where? There shouldn't be any other ships out here. A pause, then, it's not one of ours, Captain. Unknown configuration. And I think it's alien. Nia felt a thrill of excitement mixed with trepidation. First contact, out here on the edge of known space. It seemed too good, or too terrifying, to be true. She keyed her calm, Chen, I'm on my way. Try to look unthreatening. Zara, Avi, meet me at the south perimeter. Looks like we've got company. By the time Nia reached the edge of the landing area, the alien shuttle was already down, settled amid the waving stands of blue-green vegetation like some strange metallic flower. Its hatch was open, a ramp extended, but nothing moved within the shadowed interior. Nia unclipped her sidearm and held it loosely at her side, a reassuring weight. She had no intention of using it, but years of training died hard. Beside her, Zara and Avi fanned out, hands hovering near their own weapons. Don't shoot unless I give the word, Nia murmured over their shared comm channel. We're here to make friends, not start a war. As if in response to her words, a flicker of motion stirred within the shuttle. Nia tensed, bracing for anything. And then the aliens emerged, and all rational thought fled Nia's mind. They were beautiful. That was the only word for it. Tall and slender, with iridescent carapaces that shimmered in the dappled sunlight. They moved with a liquid grace, their multiple limbs flowing like ribbons in a breeze. But it was their faces that struck Nia the most. Huge, almond-shaped eyes regarded her with an intensity she could feel even at this distance, while mobile mouthparts twitched and quivered in some alien expression she couldn't quite interpret. Fear. Curiosity. Aggression. She had no idea. The lead alien took a step forward, then another. It was holding something in its uppermost pair of limbs, a shining sphere that glinted like a pearl. Slowly, carefully, it extended the sphere towards Nia. An offering? A gesture of peace? Or some kind of weapon? Nia's hand tightened on her sidearm, but she forced herself to stay still, to wait. The alien took another step, then stopped. It held the sphere aloft, mouthparts working soundlessly. And then, to Nia's utter shock, it spoke. "Greetings," it said, in a voice like wind chimes and rainfall. "I am Commander Zylothax Hurana of the Korai. We come in peace." Nia's jaw dropped. It could talk. In English? But how? Zara's excited whisper cut into her racing thoughts. "Captain, I think that sphere is some kind of universal translator." Incredible. The linguistic algorithms it must employ, to decode an unknown language on the fly. Nia shook herself, forcing her mind back to the moment. The alien, Zylothax, was still holding out the sphere, waiting. Slowly, carefully, she reached out and took it. It was cool to the touch, and lighter than it looked. I am Captain Nia Sørensen of the Terran Confederation," she said, struggling to keep her voice steady. "We also come in peace." If Zylothax was offended or frightened by her hesitation, it gave no sign. Instead, it merely inclined its head in a graceful nod. "Captain Sørensen. It is an honor to make your acquaintance. Your species has been a great mystery to us. To meet you in person is a privilege we never thought to have." Nia blinked, trying to process this. They knew about humans. Considered them a mystery. Just how long had these aliens been watching them? But that was a question for another time. For now, diplomacy was key. "The honor is ours, Commander Zylothax," she said, injecting warmth into her voice. "We had no idea your people even existed until a few minutes ago. To find intelligent life out here, so far from home, it's beyond our wildest dreams." "And ours as well," Zylothax said. It hesitated, mouthparts quivering. "Captain, I must ask, what brings you to this world? This system? It is not a hospitable place for most species." Nia smiled wryly. "I could ask you the same thing, Commander. But to answer your question, we're explorers. Scientists. We detected this planet's oxygen atmosphere from light years away, and we couldn't resist the chance to study it up close. To learn its secrets." Zylothax made a trilling sound Nia tentatively classified as laughter. "Then it seems we have much in common, Captain. For we too are explorers and scientists, drawn to this system by its many mysteries. Perhaps we could learn those secrets together." There was a note of hope in its voice, a tentative overture of friendship. And despite the strangeness of the situation, the sheer overwhelming alienness of it all, Nia found herself responding in kind. "I would like that very much, Commander Zylothax," she said softly. "I think we have a great deal to teach each other." And there, under the alien sun of a forbidden world, two species took their first steps together into a larger universe. The future, in all its terror and wonder, beckoned. In the days that followed, a tentative partnership blossomed between the crew of the Endeavour and their Korai counterparts. Under the watchful eye of their respective leaders, scientists and engineers from both species came together to share knowledge, swap stories, and marvel at the strange and wonderful world they found themselves on. For Nia and Zylothax, it was a time of revelation and challenge in equal measure. Every conversation, every shared meal or impromptu language lesson, brought fresh insights and new complications. There was so much to learn, so much to navigate. The physiological differences alone were staggering. The Galkorai's sensitive olfactory organs, for instance, made the human's pungent body odor a source of constant low-level distress, while the comparatively flat and limited human visual range made the aliens' color-based communication cues all but incomprehensible. And then there were the cultural misunderstandings, the unintentional faux pas and moments of comedic absurdity. Like the time Lieutenant Kim inadvertently challenged a Korai engineer to a duel after a miscalibrated translator led him to grievously mispronounce the alien's clan name. Or when Dr. Okafor nearly caused a diplomatic incident by offering a Korai biologist a dish of her homemade shrimp gumbo, not realizing that the mere sight of boiled crustaceans was enough to send the poor creature into anaphylactic shock. But for all the missteps and misunderstandings, there were moments of real connection, too. Moments when the vast gulfs of space and species seemed to vanish, leaving only a shared sense of wonder and purpose. Like when Nia and Zylothax stood together on a high cliff overlooking the vast, roiling seas of Poseidon, marveling at the alien beauty of it all. Or when Ensign Chen and her Korai counterpart, a young xenolinguist named Trucell, spent long hours huddled over language databases and syntax diagrams, slowly piecing together the beginnings of a true translation matrix between their two tongues. In those moments it was easy to believe that anything was possible. That two species from opposite ends of the galaxy could find common ground, could build a future together. But even as the bonds of friendship grew stronger, so too did the sense of unease, the feeling that all was not as it seemed on this strange and deadly world. There were the anomalous energy readings that Dr. Okafor's scanners kept picking up from deep beneath the planet's surface, readings that defied explanation or analysis. There were the strange, half-glimpsed shapes that seemed to flit through the jungle undergrowth, always vanishing before they could be properly observed. And there were the dreams, vivid, unsettling visions that plagued the sleep of humans and Korai alike, dreams of vast and ancient cities, of cyclopean ruins that pulsed with a cold and alien light. Something was happening on Poseidon, something that neither species could fully understand. And as the days turned to weeks, and the mysteries deepened, Nia couldn't shake the feeling that they were all standing on the brink of something momentous, and terrifying. But there was no turning back now. For better or worse, the fate of two species, and perhaps of the galaxy itself, would be decided here, on this forbidden world at the edge of known space. The stage was set. The players were in place. All that remained was to see how the story would end. But that, of course, is another tale. Revelations. Nia stood at the edge of the Korai encampment, staring out into the alien jungle with troubled eyes. 3 months. They'd been on Poseidon for 3 months now, and the mysteries just kept piling up. The energy readings were getting stronger, more frequent. And now there were reports of strange artifacts turning up in the dig sites, twisted shards of metal engraved with glyphs that none of them could decipher, fragments of machinery that seemed to predate both their civilizations by eons. Something was buried beneath Poseidon's surface, something ancient and powerful. And the more they uncovered, the more Nia feared that they were tampering with forces beyond their understanding. A soft rustling behind her announced Zylothax's approach. The Korai commander came to stand beside her, chromatophores pulsing in a muted pattern of concern. "You seem troubled, Captain Sørensen," it said, voice gentle. "Is everything all right?" Nia sighed, running a hand through her hair. "I don't know, Zylothax. I have a bad feeling about all this. The artifacts, the energy surges, it's like we're poking at a hornet's nest. Sooner or later, something's going to bite back." Zylothax trilled softly, a sound Nia had come to recognize as the Korai equivalent of a thoughtful hum. "I share your concerns, Nia. My people have legends, stories of ancient civilizations that rose to great heights, only to destroy themselves through hubris and folly. I fear we may be walking in their footsteps." Nia turned to face her friend, searching that alien visage for some hint of reassurance. "So what do we do? Pack up and leave? Pretend we never found this place?" But even as she said it, she knew it was impossible. They'd come too far, learned too much. For better or worse, their fates were now tied to this world. Zylothax seemed to sense her thoughts, for it reached out and laid a gentle appendage on her shoulder. "We do what we have always done, Nia. We seek the truth, however uncomfortable it may be. And we face whatever comes, together. Nia covered the alien's limb with her own hand, feeling a surge of gratitude and affection. Together, she echoed softly. I like the sound of that. And there they stood, human and gal Korai, united in the face of the unknown. Come what may, they would meet it side by side. Deep beneath the surface of Poseidon, in chambers that had not seen light in a billion years, ancient machines stirred to life. Circuits that had lain dormant since before the first vertebrates crawled from the primordial seas now hummed with renewed purpose, ancient directives unspooling like a virus in the datasphere. Plus anomaly detected, plus they whispered, in a code language older than time. Plus sapient lifeforms in proximity. Threat assessment, substantial. Enact containment protocol Sigma 5. Preserve the sanctity of the forge, plus. And all across Poseidon, in 100 buried complexes and forgotten vaults, ancient weapons systems powered up, stasis chambers whirred open, and the hidden guardians of this forbidden world prepared to fulfill their timeless purpose. The interlopers would be dealt with. The secrets of the forge would remain forever hidden. And if these primitives were very fortunate, some of them might even survive the experience. The attack came without warning. One moment, the Endeavor's landing site was a hive of activity, human and gal Korai crews working side by side in a spirit of peaceful cooperation. The next. Chaos. Screams and plasma fire split the humid air as dozens of towering forms erupted from the jungle around the perimeter, all glistening metal and deadly purpose. Some vaguely resembled bipedal warriors, albeit warriors out of nightmare, with impossibly advanced armaments grafted to their limbs. Others were more akin to living tanks, mountains of metal bristling with cannon barrels and torpedo tubes. But whatever their shape, their intent was clear. They had come to purge the interlopers, to scour them from the face of their forbidden world. Nia was in the command module when the first shots rang out, poring over readouts with Zylothax and a mixed team of officers. At the sound of weapons fire, she snapped upright, hand flying to her sidearm. Report. Lieutenant Kim's voice crackled over the comm, tight with fear and urgency. Captain, we're under attack. Unknown hostiles, they came out of nowhere. Nia was moving before he'd even finished speaking, Zylothax right on her heels. All personnel, battle stations, she barked into her comm, marine teams, form a perimeter around the landing site. Endeavor, get that main gun online and start picking off the big ones. Move. And then she was outside, pulse rifle in hand, charging towards the chaos with a cry of challenge on her lips. Beside her, Zylothax was a blur of lashing appendages and shimmering carapace, an alien war dance as elegant as it was deadly. All around them, humans and gal Korai fought side by side against the implacable onslaught. Plasma bolts and kinetic rounds filled the air, while overhead, the Endeavor's particle cannon lashed out again and again, vaporizing the largest of the attackers in blossoms of nuclear fire. But for every metallic monstrosity they felled, two more seemed to take its place, boiling up from hidden tunnels and shimmering into existence via some unknown teleportation technology. Slowly, inexorably, the defenders were driven back, the perimeter crumbling under the sheer weight of the assault. Nia found herself at the center of a knot of human and gal Korai warriors, fighting back to back against a tide of living metal. Her rifle bucked and roared in her hands, dropping attacker after attacker, but it wasn't enough. It would never be enough. They were going to lose this fight, she realized with a sudden, crystalline clarity. They were going to die here, light years from home, at the hands of an enemy they couldn't even comprehend. But even as despair threatened to overwhelm her, she felt Zylothax's presence at her side, steady and unyielding. Together, the alien hissed, echoing their earlier promise. To whatever end. Nia set her jaw and nodded, a fierce, defiant pride welling up within her. If this was to be their end, so be it. They would face it as they had faced everything else on this mad journey, united, unbroken. For one final, desperate push, the defenders surged forward, a tide of flesh and steel against the implacable advance of the machines. Plasma bolts and shrapnel flew, blood spattered across alien sand, and the battle raged on. In the end, it was the Endeavor that turned the tide. Battered and scorched, the great ship descended like an avenging angel, particle beams scything through the enemy ranks like the wrath of an angry god. And in its wake, the Marines and their Korai allies pressed the attack, hope renewed by the sudden shift in fortune. Slowly, painfully, the tide began to turn. The machines fell back, their numbers dwindling under the relentless onslaught. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, it was over. Nia stood amid the smoking wreckage of the battlefield, leaning heavily on her rifle as she surveyed the carnage. Broken bodies, both human and Korai, lay strewn among the shattered remains of their attackers, a testament to the fury of the fighting. But they had won. Against all odds, against an enemy that had seemed unbeatable, they had won. Zylothax limped to her side, ichor oozing from a dozen wounds. But the alien's eyes were bright with triumph, with a fierce, uncomplicated joy at being alive. "We did it," it said simply. "We survived." Nia nodded, too exhausted for words. But as she looked out over the battlefield, at the battered but unbroken survivors of this impossible fight, she felt a swell of something more than mere relief. Pride. Hope. A sense that, whatever else this strange and deadly world might throw at them, they would face it together. Human and Korai, united by bonds forged in blood and fire. There would be time to mourn the fallen, to piece together the mystery of their attackers and the ancient secrets they guarded. But for now, in this moment, they had each other. And that was enough. The battle was over. But Nia knew, with a bone-deep certainty, that the true struggle for Poseidon, for the future of both their peoples, was only just beginning. And she had never felt more ready to face it. In the wake of the attack, a strange calm settled over the human and Korai encampment. The dead were tended to, the wounded treated, and the wreckage of the battle cleared away with a solemn efficiency, as if by unspoken agreement that the work of survival took precedence over any deeper reckoning with what had occurred. But beneath the surface, tension simmered. The appearance of the ancient machines, the implications of their presence on Poseidon, it had shaken both species to their core. Nia could see it in the haunted eyes of her crew, in the agitated flashing of Korai chromatophores whenever the topic was broached. An existential dread, a creeping fear that they had stumbled onto something far beyond their understanding. It was a fear she shared, if she was being honest with herself. The memory of those implacable metal monstrosities, the sheer wrongness of their existence, still sent a chill down her spine. What kind of civilization could create such things? And for what unfathomable purpose? There were no easy answers, but Nia knew one thing for certain: they couldn't face this alone. If they were to have any hope of unraveling the mysteries of Poseidon, of surviving whatever else this world had in store, they needed help. Which was why she found herself in the Endeavor's comm center, staring at the blinking light of the quantum entanglement communicator with a mixture of trepidation and resolve. "Are you sure about this, Captain?" Lieutenant Kim asked from his station, brow furrowed with concern. "Involving Earth, the Korai homeworld, it's a big step." Nia nodded, her jaw set. "I'm sure, Jay. We're in over our heads here, and we need all the help we can get. This is bigger than just us now." She took a deep breath, then reached out and keyed the activation sequence. The QEC thrummed to life, a shimmering field of exotic particles coalescing in the transmission chamber. "Terran Confederation Headquarters, this is Captain Nia Sørensen of the Endeavor. We have encountered a sapient alien species and made first contact. We have also discovered something else. Something ancient and powerful, buried beneath the surface of an uncharted world. We need immediate reinforcement and the full scientific resources of the Confederation to deal with this situation. Please advise." She stepped back and waited, heart pounding. In another part of the galaxy, she knew, her message was being whisked across the vastness of space by the unbreakable laws of quantum mechanics, delivered instantaneously to the heart of human space. What would the response be? Disbelief? Excitement? Fear? Long minutes crawled by in tense silence. Then, with a sudden crackle of static, the response came. Endeavor, this is Admiral Sadako Hyujin of Terran Confederation Command. Your report is extraordinary, to say the least. Can you confirm the veracity of these claims? Nia almost sagged with relief at the sound of that familiar voice, stern but not dismissive. Confirmed, Admiral. I am transmitting sensor logs and visual documentation to corroborate. The situation is urgent. We need help. Another long pause. Then. Understood, Endeavor. Reinforcements are being dispatched to your location immediately. A first contact delegation is also being assembled, including xenolinguists, exoarchaeologists, and experts in ancient technologies. Maintain open communication and continue to gather data, but do not take any unnecessary risks. The Korai are to be treated as allies and equals in this endeavor, pending further diplomatic arrangements. Proceed with caution and keep us apprised of any developments. Hyujin out. The transmission ended, and Nia let out a long, shuddering breath. They weren't alone anymore. Help was coming. But even as relief washed over her, a niggling doubt remained. The wheels of bureaucracy were turning, the ponderous machinery of civilization grinding into motion, but would it be enough? And would it arrive in time? Poseidon, she feared, was not done with them yet. Not by a long shot. Across the galaxy, amid the glittering spires of the Korai homeworld, a similar scene was playing out. In the vaulted chambers of the High Council, Commander Zylothax stood before a semicircle of shimmering holograms, each one representing one of the great clans that made up the backbone of Korai society. And so I come before you, esteemed counselors, to report a development of the utmost importance, Zylothax was saying, his chromatophores flashing in formal patterns of deference and urgency. We have made contact with the humans, and together, we have uncovered a mystery that threatens the very foundations of our understanding of the galaxy. A ripple of agitation passed through the assembled holograms, a flurry of color shifts and posture changes that spoke of shock, disbelief, even fear. One of the figures, an ancient, stoop-backed Korai adorned with the glittering insignia of the Science Directorate, leaned forward intently. These, humans, it said, voice resonant with age and authority. Can they be trusted, Commander? Are they truly worthy allies in the face of such a momentous discovery? Zylothax drew himself up to his full height, eye-stalk straightening in a gesture of absolute conviction. Counselor, I have fought beside the humans, bled with them, faced death and worse at their side. And I can say without hesitation that they are some of the bravest, most resourceful, and most compassionate beings I have ever encountered. They are more than worthy, they are essential. We cannot face this threat alone. Another flurry of motion, another exchange of rippling colors. Then, the central figure, the High Counselor itself, rose to its full, imposing height. Commander Zylothax, it intoned, voice ringing with finality. The Council has heard your testimony, and we are in agreement. The humans are to be recognized as full allies of the Korai, with all the rights and responsibilities that entails. You are authorized to provide them with any and all assistance in this matter, and to call upon the full might of our fleets and the full wisdom of our Science Directorate as needed. The mystery of Poseidon must be uncovered, and the threat, whatever it may be, must be confronted. For the sake of both our peoples. Zylothax bowed low, chromatophores flashing in gratitude and determination. Thank you, High Counselor. I will not fail in this charge. Poseidon's secrets will be laid bare, and our peoples will stand together against whatever we find. The transmission ended, and Zylothax allowed himself a moment of quiet triumph. They had done it. The full weight of Korai civilization was now behind them, united in common cause with humanity. But even as he savored this victory, a cold tendril of fear curled in his gut. Because he knew, with a certainty that went beyond mere instinct, that the true test was still to come. On Poseidon's surface, the ancient machines were stirring once more. In forgotten vaults and buried complexes, things older than life itself were awakening to a changed galaxy, and they would not rest again until their timeless directives were fulfilled. The wheels were in motion. The pieces were on the board. And the endgame, whatever it might be, was finally approaching. May the gods have mercy on us all, Zylothax thought grimly. And may they grant us the strength to face what is to come. For one way or another, everything was about to change. Ships gathered above Poseidon like storm clouds, human and Korai vessels bristling with weapons and sensors. A ring of steel to guard against the unknown, as below, on the planet's mysterious surface, the truth was finally being uncovered. In cavernous vaults and glittering chambers that had not seen life in eons, human and Korai scientists worked side by side, puzzling out the secrets of the ancient machines. Deciphering the encoded language of their makers, coaxing long-dormant systems back to stuttering life. And piece by piece, bite by bite, the story began to take shape. The story of a civilization vast and incomprehensible, wielders of a technology so advanced it defied understanding. The progenitors, the records named them. The first makers. Eons ago, when the galaxy was young, they had arisen from the primal dark and reached heights undreamed of. They had reforged stars, sculpted planets, woven the very fabric of spacetime to their will. And on 1,000 worlds, they had built wonders. But chief among those wonders, crown jewel of their empire, was the place they had simply called the Forge. Poseidon. A world-spanning factory, automated and self-sustaining, churning out the building blocks of their civilization. Machines to build machines, each generation more advanced than the last, on an exponential curve towards some unimaginable apex. And then, nothing. The record simply stopped, the history of the progenitors vanishing into shadow. Leaving only the forge, humming away in the darkness, waiting for masters who would never return. Until now. Until the arrival of humans and Korai, blundering into this eons-old mystery like moths to a flame. Triggering the ancient guardians, stirring the slumbering intelligence of the forge to slow, stuttering wakefulness. It's an AI, breathed Dr. Okafor, staring in awe at the pulsing data streams that filled the central control chamber. A planetary superintelligence, orders of magnitude beyond anything we've ever conceived of. And it's been here, all this time, just, waiting. Beside her, Zylothax shuddered, chromatophores rippling with a mixture of wonder and dread. But waiting for what? He asked softly. What is its purpose here? What does it want with us? As if in answer, the data streams suddenly coalesced, weaving together into a shimmering avatar that towered over them. A figure of pure light and data, featureless save for two brilliant eyes that seemed to pierce to their very souls. Plus purpose plus, it said, in a voice that resonated in their bones. Plus directive. To create. To build. To forge the tools of ascension for our makers, plus. Dr. Okafor swallowed hard, mind racing. But your makers, the progenitors, they're gone. Long gone. You must know that. The AI's gaze shifted to her, and for a moment, she had the dizzying sensation of staring into the abyss of deep time. Plus absence noted. Progenitors not detected for 3.7 billion years, local reckoning. But directive remains. New variables required. New inputs, plus. Its gaze swept over them, human and Korai alike, and Dr. Okafor felt a chill run up her spine. Beside her, Zylothax made a soft, clicking sound of realization. It's talking about us, the alien said softly. Humans, Korai, we're the new variables. The new inputs for its eternal directive. The AI inclined its head, a strangely human gesture for such an inhuman being. Plus affirmative. Sapient lifeforms detected, technological advancement sufficient for integration into the forge. Opportunity to continue directive. To create. To ascend, plus. In that moment, the full weight of what they were being offered crashed down on Dr. Okafor like a physical blow. The technology of the progenitors, the accumulated wisdom of an ancient, unimaginably advanced civilization, offered freely to humanity and the Korai. It was a gift beyond measure. A chance to leap forward technologically by millennia in a single bound, to reshape the very foundations of their civilizations. To reach heights they had never dreamed possible. But it was also a test, she realized. A choice, fraught with peril and possibility. To accept this ancient legacy, to take up the mantle of the progenitors and all that came with it, or to walk away, to forge their own path free of the weight of that eons-old directive. She looked to Zylothax, saw the same realization, the same conflict, reflected in the alien's shimmering eyes. For a long moment, they simply stared at each other, a silent conversation passing between them. Then, as one, they turned back to the AI. To the waiting forge, and all the promise and peril it represented. "What would you have us do?" Dr. Okafor asked simply. "How do we begin?" And the avatar of the forge smiled, a strange and terrible thing, as a new chapter in the story of two civilizations began to unfold. It was a new age, a time of wonders and terrors. With the technology of the forge at their fingertips, humanity and the Korai advanced in leaps and bounds, breaking the shackles of the merely possible to venture into realms undreamed of. But even as they reached new heights, the shadow of the progenitors loomed large. The directive, that all-consuming drive to create, to build, to ascend, it whispered at the edges of their consciousness, an ever-present temptation and goad. Some embraced it wholly, losing themselves in the pursuit of the next innovation, the next breakthrough. Others recoiled from it, seeing in its seductive promise the seeds of their own destruction. And as the decades slipped by, the galaxy watched in awe and dread as the heirs of the progenitors reshaped themselves and their worlds in that ancient image, and wondered if they were witnessing the birth of a new golden age, or the first steps on the road to oblivion. Nia and Zylothax, those unlikely friends who had first stumbled upon Poseidon's secrets, watched it all with a strange mix of pride and trepidation. They had set these wheels in motion, for good or ill. Whatever came next, whatever wonders or horrors the future held, they would face it as they had always done. Together. Two species, two civilizations, united by a bond thicker than blood. A bond forged in the crucible of the forge, and tempered by the choices they had made, the path they had chosen. For the legacy of the progenitors was a heavy one, but it was not immutable. And in the end, it would be their choices, their vision, that would shape the destiny of the galaxy. The forge was the clay. But the hands that shaped it, that molded it towards utopia or ruin, those hands were their own. And as Nia looked out across the stars, at a galaxy trembling on the cusp of a new and uncertain age, she felt a strange sense of calm settle over her. Whatever the future held, they would meet it head-on, unafraid and unbroken. For they were explorers still, she and Zylothax and all the rest. Seekers of knowledge, shapers of destiny. The children of Earth and the Korai ascendancy. Heirs to the progenitors. The inheritors of the stars.